Welcome to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Britt Terrell. Britt is a rising second-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2026, and she and I recently connected to talk more about her background, her decision to pursue an MBA, what led her to Darden, how she's spending her first-year summer, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the Experience Darden podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Britt Terrell. Britt, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Brett. I'm happy to be here.
It's good to talk with you. How's everything? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm really good. I'm in Los Angeles for the summer for my internship. It's been a busier morning, I think, than I expected, but I'm really good.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you for, we're recording this early for you. So thank you so much for taking time for the podcast. Tell us a little bit more about you. Who are you and what's your background?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name's Britt Terrell. I am a rising second year at Darden. I'm originally from Virginia. I'm a double who. I went to UVA undergrad. After graduating the first time, quite a while ago now, I went into media, to broadcast media. I was part of the NBC Page program in New York City. I lived in New York for quite a long time, kind of made my way up in that industry. Worked at places like Saturday Night Live as a page, Focus Features. My first job was at the NBC Today Show. Worked at the Morning Joe during the 2016 election and did left and wanted to work in the startup space to be more creative. So went back and forth between NBC and NBC Digital and some startups. And did well there, and we can get into all of that, but found my way back to Darden in 2024. And so here I am today, and that's a very short way of telling my story, but yeah, happy to be here and happy the way everything's unfolded. So.
Well, lots of interesting experiences there. Do you have a highlight or two from your time as a page?
Oh my gosh. The Page program is a very unique experience. My time at Saturday Night Live was obviously very cool. Still to this day, as long ago as that was, one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. You grow up sort of wanting to be in that world, and then you're fresh out of college and you actually get to be around people you've idolized. It's pretty incredible. This is not what I would have expected to say that long ago, but I think meeting Tom Hanks was very cool. He was like meeting any of my friends' dads growing up, and that's what they say about him, right? But that really was the truth. He was super down to earth, really fun, introduced himself to everyone, and it felt like you'd known him for years. So I think that was one of my favorite experiences for sure.
Wow. I think you're the first podcast guest we've had who's talked about meeting Tom Hanks. So there you go. You can't say that every day. So, Well, in all of this, how did you decide that you wanted to pursue an MBA? How did MBA become something that you wanted to do?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. That's, I guess, where the story gets a little bit more complicated. So, after in the pandemic, I was at NBC Digital, and I had been there a couple of years. I was hired back at NBC after leaving in 2018 to go to a startup. I, again, wanted to leave to work in a more creative space, and startups were really the place to do that. And so I had worked at this company called Cheddar for about a year, did really well there, but startups are very grueling. And so I had done some really cool things there, launched a couple of shows. I'd also made great relationships there. So it was also as tough as a year as it was physically and mentally. It was great for me socially, and I really loved it. But I came back to NBC because they were launching a streaming network in 2018. It's called NBC News Now. That's what it's called today. At the time, it was called NBC News Signal when we were developing it, and it was a group of 6 of us at the time. And so I did that for about 2 years. It was this very exciting thing. And then I was just ready to grow. I was ready to move on and do something else. And it was a live streaming network, and I wanted to be back in another scrappy space. And so this was 2020. And so at this point, we were already working from home. The pandemic had already hit. And so it's summer 2020. And, it's a risk, right? Like we don't really know what's going to happen economically. But it's a risk I was happy to take. And so I went to another startup. I, in hindsight, did really well at the startup. When we went through multiple restructures in that time, multiple reorgs, and I actually had multiple promotions in that 2.5 years I was there. But during those promotions, there were also other layoffs. And so by the third restructure, I was laid off as well, even after getting promoted a couple of times. And so that was October of 2022. I lost my job. A lot of other people lost their job. I think maybe after the company growing to about 100, 150 people, in that third layoff, maybe 10 people were left. And so I was looking for jobs for several months. The industry was not in a good place. Media wasn't in a good place. Tech as a whole also wasn't in a good place. So both industries were being hit hard at the same time. And I was in New York, living in New York, and I had met with a mentor, a friend and a mentor of mine who went to Darden and went to UVA undergrad, also a double who. And I honestly was just meeting with him to just have a conversation about what he thought maybe I should do next. Did not go into the conversation thinking about asking him about his MBA or whether he thought I should go back to get an MBA, but he just ended up talking about Darden. We met at the Virginia Club of New York at the Yale Club in Manhattan, if anyone listening's ever been. And Darden came up and his experience came up, and I just left the conversation thinking, okay, well, the industry is doing some funny stuff right now. It doesn't look like it's going to be changing anytime soon. And so I have always thought about getting this degree. It's always sort of been in the back of my mind. Maybe now's the time. And I don't want just any degree. I don't really want to just be anywhere. If I do it, I think I want to go back home. My dad only lives like an hour outside of Charlottesville. I grew up about an hour outside of Charlottesville. Again, I graduated UVA undergrad. And so I decided to do it at Darden. I only applied to Darden, and I applied very, very early. I did a ton of research. I listened to your podcast, believe it or not. I looked at a lot of Donna Clark's videos, and learned that like applying as early as possible is the best way to sort of make your chances of getting in as high as possible. And I took a chance and hoped for the best. And so I got in early action. And that's how me going back to get my MBA happened. And that's how me coming back to Darden happened.
Yeah, submitting an early application is a way of demonstrating interest, right? That it always comes up, but it's also a time, when it's early in our process, right? The class hasn't really started to take shape. There's more seats available. There's typically more scholarship money available. Of course, we meet great candidates in early action round 1, round 2, and even oftentimes in round 3. But you're right. As a candidate, the earlier you apply, you can apply knowing that you're applying at a time when there are more seats and more scholarship money available. I appreciate that note, Britt. So Darden sounds like was a very intentional choice for you. What was it about Darden that really resonated?
Yeah, I mean, aside from it being a place Charlottesville and UVA as a whole being a place that I already knew very well, I knew it was a great school and that it was competitive. I knew that if I went back, I had to be intentional about the type of education that I was getting. So I knew I wanted to get a great education. I knew I wanted to get a competitive education. So I wanted to come out as well-rounded as I possibly could. I knew that the case method was going to be challenging and difficult. I knew it had been quite a long time since I'd been in a classroom before. And so all of that was going to be challenging. But like, this was the time that I needed to be challenged in a good way, like in a very positive and productive way. And so I don't think that there was any place that was going to combine all of the things that I needed at once. And so, yeah, less than a year later, after getting through first year, I think that it did exactly that, if I'm being honest.
What was that adjustment like to being back in school, to being a graduate business student? How would you describe that?
Oh my gosh. Uh, I'm struggling because it's hard to come up with just one word. There isn't just one word. For me, because I came back later, years after graduating the first time, there were a lot of challenges. So again, I hadn't been in a classroom in a really long time. I had one of the positives, right, was that I had a lot of work experience. So that was great. I could see the cases differently. The cases were really interesting to me because we're looking at cases are great in comparison to learning through a lecture style or a textbook classroom because you're looking at how businesses really do things. And so I could really relate to some of the things that we're learning in the cases because I've seen some of them before. But yeah, I mean, a challenging experience in that I'm in a classroom with students of all different backgrounds, all different types of work experiences. I've been primarily in a creative industry for a really long time, in New York City. I'm in a class with students that are coming from all over the place. And so in a really interesting time in general, like it was a challenge, but I now can look back on the last year as, for example, like as tough as Q1 of core was for me mentally, like I genuinely feel like a better person for it. And a more ready person in the workplace, a more well-rounded person to be able to look back and see like all of the different perspectives my classmates have in comparison to the perspectives that I have and that I bring. Like I see the world a lot differently now, and I see them a lot differently now. And so it's made me a lot more well-adjusted, I would say. And I didn't think that I was ill-adjusted before. So I think me 6 or 7 months ago would be shocked that I'm saying that. Yeah.
And you have this background in media. Did that follow through in terms of your career interests as you thought about your career goals, what you wanted to do in say your summer after your first year?
Yeah, the way the internship came together is interesting. It was definitely surprising. It was not surprising in that it sort of came together better than I could have hoped for in terms of where I am. So I applied. I got in so early to Darden that I researched pretty early on what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do, right? I was able to rule out certain career paths that I knew wouldn't be a good fit. And that's what I tried to do first before I got to grounds. And again, that was a privilege because I knew so early that I was coming here that I had the time to do that. And so once I got to grounds, I was able to stick pretty true to what I knew I wanted, which was tech, entrepreneurship, and venture capital. And those were the 3 focuses that I had. I launched a small media agency before coming to Darden, and so I was able to basically follow those 3 trajectories. So yeah, when I came here, I was applying the tech route. I was doing Darden Venture Fellows, which if you're interested in that, you'll learn much more about it once you get to grounds, and probably a bit before this summer. And then I had my own small venture, which I put on the back burner with me and my co-founder because I had to get through the core. And yeah, tech is a little bit all over the place when it comes to deadlines. It's not as formulaic as banking and consulting is. So I knew it was going to be I knew that it would probably be a longer path, but it didn't really happen that way for me. So I got very lucky. I feel very fortunate. In December, after applying and doing what's called a resume drop, where you just simply apply to an open pool of an open application pool, I got an email from a recruiter at Apple that said they felt that I would be a good fit for a role at Apple Music. Yeah, the interview process began within a couple of days. And I think 5 days before Christmas or something, they told me I had gotten the role after just 2 interviews. So my recruiting path was pretty simple and straightforward. And I feel very, very fortunate for how all of that unfolded. And yes, to answer your question, it sort of did align with my media background.
So, Britt, it was interesting hearing you talk about, this process of figuring out what you wanted to do, but also what you didn't want to do. How did you do that? How did you come up with this idea?
Sure. Yeah, I started through the exploratory programs that Darden has in the summertime, the career foundations, and the career leader test. I actually found really helpful. It was pretty interesting to see how instinctually I felt certain things I would be good at, and I felt certain things I probably wouldn't be good at. I took the test. I took a few of those tests that Career Foundations lists as options. And they sort of showed me exactly where my strengths and where my weaknesses were. And a lot of those things ended up aligning pretty well with what I already instinctually knew about myself. I will say, though, I think that one of the benefits that I had was that I already had over a decade of work experience behind me. And so I think that was really helpful for me. I had been working for so long. I'd had many jobs before coming to Darden. I think I'd gotten to know myself really well. But those tests were super helpful. They confirmed for me that tech would be great for me. They confirmed for me that even startup spaces would be good for me. I knew coming here that I loved to work collaboratively. Some of those career and personality tests confirmed that like you're a collaborative person. Once I got to Darden, I started taking certain classes. I learned that I loved the process of design thinking. What's fascinating is a lot of tech products are designed via design thinking. So it's hilarious, honestly, in hindsight, the way these things have sort of lined up in the last year. Yeah, it's been a weirdly interesting process for me, but really enlightening and entertaining. Yeah.
Well, Britt, one of the storylines for second year students at the Darden School is that they get more actively involved, at least lead from a leadership standpoint, in clubs and organizations. They play an active role in shaping the community experience at Darden. So curious, what clubs and organizations are you going to be involved with?
Yeah, I'm going to continue my work with the Tech Club. I'll be a VP of Marketing and Communications this year. One of the two of them, one of two. And then I will continue working with the Entrepreneurship and Venture Capital Club, not in an official leadership position, but I have great friends that are leading that club. It was a huge resource to me last year when I was a first year liaison. And then I will be one of two facilitators for what's called Darden Stories. Darden Stories is a really special organization on grounds. It's this intimate, student-led meeting basically that happens a couple of times a quarter. We bring students together and we have a couple of students every single meeting share personal stories. I shared mine at the year, but we allow students to share any sort of story they want without judgment, no pressure. No one needs to be a formal storyteller or an experienced storyteller. We do it usually in a classroom at Darden in the evening time. And anyone that's interested can do it. I don't mean to use this podcast as an ad for it, but yeah, we want people to participate. And it's a very intimate thing. And it can be a very private thing as well. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to be part of that this year going forward as well.
Yeah, Darden Stories. It sounds, I mean, we've had people come on the podcast talk about it before. It sounds just like an incredible space just for students to come and share and open up and talk about things maybe they have not necessarily had the space to talk about with their classmates just yet. And it sounds like an incredible forum for people to do that kind of sharing.
For sure. And I think, MBA students and in the classroom, it's not always the most vulnerable space, right? And it's not always a group that opens up the easiest. And so Darden Stories, we try to make this a space for everyone to be able to do that. And so, yeah, that's what we hope to make it.
Well, what are you looking forward to in the months ahead, Britt?
Well, I've got about a little bit more than half my time left this summer in Los Angeles. So I want to keep exploring LA, keep enjoying LA, meet more people. There's a few of us out here from Darden that have been hanging out, and we've been getting to know each other better. Those of us that didn't get to hang out as much during the school year. So that's really been fun, getting to know each other on a different level.
Well, Britt, you've shared a lot of advice for folks or things for them to be thinking about as they approach their own MBA experience. But I wonder, what's a final piece of advice you would share with our listeners as they think about their own MBA journeys?
No matter where you are, I would say be open as you can be to the entire experience. It will be a roller coaster. If it was anything like mine, it'll definitely be a roller coaster of emotions. And I would say be open to changing, like as a person, right? Be open to new classmates. Be open to new classmates. Be open to new experiences. Don't come in feeling like you have to have a set group of friends right away. Meet new people that are outside of your comfort zone. Be open to new job possibilities, new recruiting possibilities. You'll hear this a lot, but don't get swayed by the way everyone else seems to be going, whether that's socially or whether that's with recruiting. I think you'll find that the entire experience will be far more fulfilling, even after that first year, if you're able to stay as open-minded as possible.
Yeah, it's hard not to follow the crowd. I think that's what I hear from folks. Maybe it's a hedge strategy. Like if I'm doing what everybody else is doing, maybe I'm not in the wrong place or something. Like I feel like it's something that's it's easy to say, don't do that, but it's very hard not to do that. I think all the work, what really struck me about your story is all the work you did up front using Career Leader and sort of thinking about what you wanted. I think that's really important for people coming into an MBA program. The clearer you can be about what you want to do and where you think you might want to do it, can help you when it feels like there's so much opportunity and people are going in a lot of different directions. It's really easy to get swept up in the crowd.
Yeah, I think the better you can try to get to know yourself before coming into that, the easier it will be, definitely.
Yeah, we've had a number of podcast guests talk about, and in so many words, the importance of having kind of a North Star, something that really anchors you through your experience, that a really clear sense of your own priorities of what you're trying to get out of this. You meet a lot of different people, a lot of different priorities, but if you can keep an eye on what your priorities are, that can really help guide you when you're, again, navigating something where you have a lot of choice and a lot of opportunity and you can do a lot of different things, which is great, but also can feel overwhelming too.
It's so true. Like knowing what your priorities are, then also maybe knowing what your trade-offs are. Yeah, definitely. I would say use journaling, use every resource or any resource that's worked for you in the past when it comes to sorting through all of those things. And then I think the clear-eyed, clear-minded you are about those when you get here, it'll be super helpful.
Well, Britt, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to connect with us. So glad you're having a good experience in Los Angeles. Enjoy the rest of the time out there. I imagine the weather's pretty nice, although I know it can get a little gloomy in June as it's known. But I imagine July would be pretty nice time to be there.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of, there's been some June gloom, but this last week has been very bright and sunny and warm, and it's been a welcome change for sure.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And that was my conversation with Britt Terrell, a rising second-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2026. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's Darden, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.